Hello, everybody. I want to start with a question. I will show you 5 pictures, and I want you to think that have you ever felt this way? Or have you seen this kind of behavior at work? Did it sound familiar? Yeah? Nodding. Well, actually, these are answers that I have gotten from my emotion training participants when I asked that what is the most difficult behavior at work, or what prevents them from showing or handling emotions. And now you might think that, why emotions? And I get that a lot. You know, Camilla, we are professionals here. We concentrate on the linear logical stuff. And emotions, well, they're not that important. Or some say, oh, don't go there. Emotions, they are difficult. You know, don't touch that. But I also hear this silence wondering that, why? You know, we haven't paid attention to emotions so far, so why should we start now? And, you know, there's a body of evidence and science saying, yes, you should look at emotions. But let's now, instead, look at the pictures that I showed before and see that what kinds of consequences might these behaviors have on the environment. Maybe these. Negativity, shouting, that creates fear. That's a threat. Being cynical, angry, that creates anger because people are so fed up with people complaining all the time. One participant said that we should give a Nobel Peace Prize for the one who solved this behavior. And this next one, the pressure to be something you're not. Positive, for example, extrovert, have drive. And people who are not naturally that, they feel pressured. And they feel even ashamed of who they truly are. Envy. That creates gossiping. And for sure, it will decrease trust. It will erode cooperation. And last but not least, my favorite, Teflon. When you're not showing anything, we're especially good at that in Finland. But that creates confusion and uncertainty among people because they don't know what you're feeling or thinking. If you would have to summarize this behavior, wouldn't you say that they are maybe rude, uncivil? That is actually what Christine Porath and her colleagues studied. That what are the consequences of rude or uncivil behavior to the business? And not only what it does for the other people who's the subject of this behavior, but also what it does for the witnesses. Or when people are only primed with these words, these are some of the results. 80% lost work time. We worry about these behaviors. 60% cut back work efforts. 25% worst performance. Performance went down. We miss information when we are afraid, and that was 5 times more in this kind of environments. 12% left their jobs, and the ideas are not flourishing in this kind of environment. But actually, I want to stop here. Because even though this data and studies and numbers are hugely important, these are not going to solve the problem. Because in the future, we need to be able to be comfortable with this invisible, intangible stuff. And what are these invisible, intangible stuff? Emotions, yes, they are hard to handle, but also many other things. And I'm sure you have noticed them already when you're in a leader position. You have data and you have analyses and you're looking at them, and there comes a point when you just have to understand and you have to trust and decide. And it's not only emotions that are difficult to grasp, it's also many other important skills and topics that we need in the future. First example, innovation and ideas. I drew this when I had a meeting with one company, and they had asked me to come in and talk about speaking engagement. As the meeting went on, I started to feel more and more uncomfortable. Trying to describe that, emotions are the future. We have to know how to lead them. Use pictures to describe them. And there were all these questions and, controlling. And this is not the behavior of the future. We know from the startups, how can you prove something that haven't existed? It's quite difficult. And I sometimes think of Henry Ford, that how did he feel when he tried to convince everybody that, yes, we are using these horses now, but we should use these metal boxes instead. And also we know these exponential technologies. We know that they might take years or even decades to prove themselves. But when they do, they explode the market. They disrupt it. Just like what happened to DNA sequencing, electric cars. So we have to move from this data knowledge even to wisdom. And again, it's a hugely difficult concept. What is wisdom? Wisdom researchers say that wisdom is, for example, your capability to be comfortable with our uncertainty. And most intriguingly, it's your ability to use your knowledge, what you have learned from the books, but also your experiences and intuition. Last example of the future skills, flow. And this, I think, is so paradoxical, so hard to grasp, that in flow, when we are in the optimal state of the performance, when we are over 500% more productive, we are not thinking more, we are thinking less. Because our prefrontal cortex deactivates. So these are examples of the future and the concepts that we have to get familiar with and comfortable with, even though they are quite hard. And now we can take the next step in learning how to be an emotion leader. And that is to understand that emotions are not here to bother us. They are not some random things, but actually they are bringing us information. Yes. They are like our own computer, scanning the environment all the time, bringing us information, and in correlation to our own system, it makes us feel something. Isn't that interesting? And it doesn't mean that we don't listen to the facts. Yes, we can have all the data and facts, yes, but you can also learn to listen to this emotion channel. And when you start to listen to it, name what you hear. Because naming and admitting emotions is actually magic. Naming does not only enhance your performance, because naming of emotions is a core skill in emotional intelligence, and that is hugely correlated with positive work performance. But it will also calm your brain down. Yes, brain scientists have been able to prove that that happens. And then just get curious. What is happening? Why? Ask questions. Understand linkages between emotions and behaviors and thoughts. And then change something. Do action. And now I know it's boring that, Camilla, don't you have a quick fix for me? Don't you have one magic wand that would wipe away all my emotion-related problems? There's none, but I have something better. You can change emotions almost instantly, like this. Just a few examples. For example, if you're slouching now, you can change your posture to upright, and this will have an effect on your hormone levels. Or if you just change your expression, you will have an effect on other people around you. So I challenge you to move away from this, in a way, 1.0, when you have the tools and you have the processes and strategy. They are like, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they are the basics, the food and the shelter. And move towards 2.0. When you understand this invisible and intangible, more complex stuff, and know how to understand them and utilize them and lead them. And that is the way to be truly competitive in the future. One last thing. I think that this skill to understand and lead emotions is our duty. Because I believe that we all have to make sure that we are handling our stuff, I'm not saying the other word, before we go into contact with other people. Because we have no right to put our stuff, bad stuff, forward. But instead, we have to make sure that in most of the cases, we make sure that we put good forward when we are in encounters and create these positive chain reactions. And that way, the behaviors I showed in the beginning won't follow us to the future. Thank you.